He thought she was different, that this time it would be real, loyal, unshakable, that she would be the partner who stayed through thick and thin, like he would have Dom, but she didn't stay. And now he's staring at the wall of an empty apartment, asking the same quiet question so many men over 40 ask, what the hell happened? The truth is, it's not just about her. It's about what most men never understood about women in the first place. Not because we're stupid, not because we're careless, but because no one taught us. No one told us the truth about female nature. We walk into relationships thinking we're marrying a best friend, when in reality, we're stepping into a dynamic we barely understand. If you've ever felt blindsided by a breakup or confused by the emotional shift of the woman you once loved, this video is for you. Drop a quiet comment if this ever crossed your mind. I thought she'd have my back like I would have had hers. Because this is the truth, no anger, no bitterness, just clarity. Let's talk about what men need to understand about women before the damage is done. The loyalty mistake. She's not your new best friend. As boys, loyalty was simple. You had your friends, you had their back, they had yours. If things went sideways, you covered for each other, no questions asked. That kind of bond, unspoken, unsentimental but unbreakable, became the way many men understood love. So when we grew up, found the right woman, and stood beside her at the altar, we believed we were gaining a new version of that loyalty. But here's the first hard truth most men never hear. She's not your new Mike. She's not your old best friend, just with better equipment. Because a woman's connection to you isn't built on the same foundation. Male loyalty tends to be principled. I'm with you because I gave my word. Female loyalty tends to be conditional. I'm with you because it feels right now. This isn't about blaming women. It's about understanding them. Biologically, evolutionarily, and emotionally, women are wired to respond to the safety, security, and stability of the moment. Not loyalty for loyalty's sake. Not vows as an unbreakable bond. But relationships as a living equation. Does this still serve me? Does this still feel aligned? If the answer changes, their feelings change. And eventually, so does their presence. It's not because they're bad, it's because they're different. And when you don't understand that difference, you take it personally. You feel betrayed. You wonder how she could walk away from everything you built. But maybe she wasn't building a forever, she was building a for now. This is why so many men feel blindsided by divorce or disconnection. They confuse male-style loyalty with female-style connection. The commitment illusion, why vows mean different things. You stood there, in front of God, family, and 100 blinking cameras. You said the words. She did too. For better or worse. In sickness and in health. For richer or poorer. You meant every syllable. Not just because it was tradition, but because that vow represented something sacred to you, honor, duty, finality. You believed, like many men do, that a vow was a binding contract of loyalty, that once you said it, you were both on the same team forever. But what you didn't know is that the word commitment doesn't land the same in her world. Because for most women, commitment is fluid, not fixed. It's emotional, not logical. It's felt, not reasoned. And when the feeling changes, the commitment often follows. You see, a man might stay even when he's miserable because he gave his word. But a woman may leave even when things look fine, because something inside feels off. She's not betraying you. She's obeying a deeper instinct, one that many women themselves don't fully understand or articulate. This doesn't mean women are incapable of loyalty. It means their loyalty is contextual, not absolute. In the same way a man values clarity, a woman values alignment. And when alignment slips emotionally, financially, spiritually, she starts to feel the walls closing in. Not because she wants to abandon you, but because her nervous system is wired to scan for what's safe, not what's honorable. This is why many men feel a deep, inexplicable shock when their wife says, "I'm not happy, I'm leaving." It feels like betrayal. But to her, it feels like self-preservation. And no one tells you this. Not your father. Not school. Not church. They tell you to be a good man, commit fully, and protect your family. But they never mention that you might do all of that, and still watch her walk away without looking back. Because what you defined as loyalty was never the same thing she was promising. You gave her permanence. She gave you presence. But the contract you thought was carved in stone was written in pencil, and feelings held the eraser. This is the illusion, the tragedy, and eventually, the awakening. Because once you understand that vows mean different things to different hearts, you stop blaming, you stop clinging, you start seeing. And that's when healing begins, not through resentment, but through clarity, the nature versus want. Behavior distinction, why you can't train her to stay. There's a common mistake men make, especially the good ones. They think if they do everything right, provide stability, protect and support, communicate with patience, show up, stay loyal, sacrifice when needed, then she'll stay. They believe her loyalty is a response to their behavior, that if they act right, she'll stay right. Oh, war. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You're not dealing with a trained response, you're dealing with human nature. And her nature doesn't obey logic, it obeys instinct. Think of it this way. Dogs can be trained to sit, stay, and follow your lead. Cats, they operate on their own terms. This isn't a slam against women. It's an analogy for independence of instinct. Men often assume women will respond to effort the way another man would. That if you show unwavering support, she'll reciprocate. That if you commit fully, she'll mirror that energy. That if you love hard enough, she'll never leave. But women aren't calibrated like men. They're emotionally intuitive, not linear. They respond to how a space feels, not how it looks on paper. So when something in her inner world starts to feel off, even if you've done nothing wrong, she doesn't ask, "What's fair?" She asks, "What feels right for me now?" That's not behavior you can fix. That's nature you must understand. You can't love her into staying. You can't logic her into loyalty. You can't earn permanence with performance. Because when her nervous system starts signaling discomfort, she'll shift, pull back, or detach long before she explains it. And by the time you notice, she's halfway gone. This is what most men fail to grasp, that her behavior in good times isn't a contract, it's a state. And states change. What feels natural today might feel misaligned next year. And it's not about you. It's about the ebb and flow of how she experiences emotional safety. So what do you do with this? You stop trying to control outcomes through behavior and start learning to read emotional signals as they shift. You stay grounded. You stay clear. And most of all, you never mistake effort for a guarantee. Because the moment you believe love is earned through pleasing her, you've already abandoned yourself. And no woman, no matter how amazing she once seemed, is worth the price of losing your center. Why being a good man wasn't enough. You worked hard. You stayed faithful. You provided. You protected. You thought that was the job. You believed deep down that if you were a good man, the rest would fall into place. She'd stay. She'd love you the same. She'd see your efforts and say, "I'm lucky to have him." But she didn't. And one day, she left physically or emotionally, and you were left staring into the silence, asking the same haunting question, "Wasn't I good enough?" Here's the truth most men are never told. Being a good man is necessary, but not sufficient, not in her world. Because what you call good, being dependable, logical, low drama, consistent, is often invisible to her emotional system. She doesn't feel your steadiness the way you value it. She doesn't register your loyalty the way you would. Why? Because female attraction and emotional engagement are not activated by consistency alone. They're triggered by feeling seen, feeling alive, feeling emotionally mirrored. And good men, especially mature, grounded, responsible ones, often default to providing stability instead of creating connection. You give her a life. But you forget to keep giving her an emotional experience. Not because you don't care, but because no one taught you that women don't love the way you do. You love with your logic. She's safe, loyal, consistent, that's love. And she loves with emotion. Do I feel chosen today? Do I feel desired, understood, ignited? And so, while you're focused on keeping things calm, she's slowly drowning in emotional boredom or disconnection. And the tragedy? She never told you clearly, because she didn't even know how to name it. So, she drifted. She withdrew. She stopped laughing at your jokes. She became colder in bed. And eventually, she said, "I don't feel it anymore." You were blindsided, because you didn't change. But in her world, that was the problem. You stayed the same, while she evolved emotionally alone. So here's what no one tells you. Being a good man isn't about perfection. It's about presence, about paying attention to the shifts in energy, about being tuned in enough to ask, what's changing in this space between us, and are we naming it? You don't need to perform. You don't need to chase. But you do need to show up not just with actions, but with awareness. Because she didn't leave because you were bad. She left because you were good. But distant. Reliable, but emotionally absent. Steady, but unchanging. And now you know. Not to blame yourself, but to wake up, because being a good man only matters when it includes being an emotionally present one. How women choose, and why they leave. She didn't pick you at random. When she met you, there was something about you that felt right. Strong, steady, safe. You brought structure to her chaos, direction to her emotions, calm to her storm. And when she chose you, she was sincere. In that moment, She saw something in you that felt like the best possible future. Security, support, growth. Whether she said it out loud or not, she saw you as a solution to the unknowns of her life. That's how most women choose, not just based on love, but on alignment with where they are right now. They assess safety, potential, emotional connection. And when all signs point to yes, they open their hearts. But here's the hidden truth. Most women choose from the version of themselves they are in that moment. And if they change, their criteria changes too. You may have been the perfect man for her when she was 28, but now she's 41. She's been through motherhood, stress, self-discovery, and she's not the same woman. And if she doesn't know how to evolve with you, she'll eventually feel like she's waking up next to a man who no longer fits her narrative. That's when the shift begins. At first, it's subtle. She becomes distant, short, irritable over things that never used to bother her. Then she starts talking about her own growth, her own space. She wants to find herself. And you're left confused, hurt, wondering what you did wrong. But here's the thing. It wasn't necessarily something you did. It was that she evolved and expected the relationship to evolve with her, even if she never told you how. Women don't usually leave because of a single offense. They leave because of emotional drift. They tried to close the distance, tried to drop hints, tried to feel something again. But when that emotional spark doesn't return, when the polarity fades, they slowly untether. Some leave dramatically. Others stay in the house but withdraw completely. But either way, the relationship dies. Not with a bang, but with a quiet, extended absence. As men, we miss the signs because we tend to interpret love as actions. If I'm still providing, still showing up, still loyal, we're fine, right? But women interpret love as emotional aliveness. Do I still feel moved, met, magnetized? When that feeling dies, they don't always fight for it. They leave for it, not to punish you, not to ruin you, but to reconnect with themselves. And that's the most painful realization of all. She didn't leave you. She left the version of herself she no longer wanted to be, and you were part of that old identity. It's not fair. It's not evil. It's just real. And once you understand that, you stop chasing closure. You stop begging for answers. You stop believing that her choice was proof of your inadequacy. It wasn't. It was simply a reflection of a truth we're rarely taught. Women choose based on alignment, and when it fades, so do they. The way forward, peace without bitterness. So what now? You've seen her walk away, or you've watched her drift quietly, still in the same house, but no longer beside you. You've replayed every moment, every word. You've questioned your worth, your choices, even your ability to love again. And maybe for a while you were angry. Maybe you still are. That's okay. No one teaches men how to grieve when the woman they gave everything to chooses herself instead. But here's where you stop spiraling and start rebuilding. Because what you're feeling isn't just pain. It's awakening. You're seeing clearly now something no one told you. You weren't broken. You weren't unworthy. You weren't not enough. You were simply playing by a different rulebook, one you were never given the translation for. Now that you understand her nature, you stop resenting it. Just like you don't get angry at a wave for crashing, or a dog for barking, you stop trying to fix or control what simply is, and instead you reclaim yourself. Not for revenge, not to show her, but because the greatest act of masculine strength is to rebuild without bitterness. You learn to lead again this time, not for someone else, but from your center. You speak your truth even if no one stays to hear it. You stop giving everything to be chosen and start choosing yourself. And maybe one day you meet another woman. Maybe not. That part doesn't matter as much anymore, because now you know, love is not about merging identities. It's about standing beside each other, two full people, not half-saved versions seeking completion. You no longer need her to promise forever. You just need to see yourself clearly and keep that promise to you. And that, brother, is where your peace begins. Not in trying to change her nature, not in pretending yours doesn't exist, but in walking forward, eyes open, heart steady, with no illusions left to lose. If you've ever felt this shift, this painful awakening that eventually became peace, leave a quiet comment. She left, but I stayed with myself. Because that's the real end of the story. Not the leaving, not the silence, not the loss, but the return to the man you were always meant to be.